I still remember the sound of the zipper. It's a sound that haunts me, even now, sitting here in a living room that costs more than the house I grew up in. It wasn't a suitcase zipper. It was the distinct, crinkling, cheap sound of a heavy-duty trash bag being cinched tight. "You have exactly 2 hours," my mother, Brenda, said. She didn't look at me. She was looking at her nails, inspecting a chip in her polish, as if that were the tragedy of the evening. Whatever isn't in a bag by 8 p.m. goes in the dumpster. I was 18 years old. I was terrified, and I was pregnant. "Mom, please," I begged, my voice cracking. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, the bed I had slept in since I was a little girl. The pink floral comforter was still the same one I'd picked out in middle school. "It's snowing outside. I have nowhere to go. Just let me stay until I figure this out. I'll get a job. I'll pay rent." She finally looked at me then. Her eyes were hard, devoid of anything resembling maternal instinct. It was like looking into the eyes of a stranger who hated me. "You should have thought about that before you went and opened your legs like a stray cat, Felicity. I will not have a pregnant teenager under my roof. What will the neighbors think? What will Pastor Mike say?" That was always it with Brenda. It wasn't about morality. It wasn't about what was right. It was about appearance. It was about how her life looked to the people at the grocery store or the church picnic. From the hallway, I heard a snicker. My older brother, Kevin, was leaning against the door frame, munching on an apple. He was 22, perfectly healthy, and unemployed. He spent his days playing video games and his nights drinking beer in the garage with his friends. Mom never asked him for rent. Mom never threatened to kick him out. He was the golden child, the boy who could do no wrong, even though he had cost her thousands in legal fees for his petty thefts and DUIs. "Better pack fast, Felicity," Kevin smirked, taking a loud bite of the apple. "Forecast says it's gonna drop to 10 degrees tonight." I looked from Kevin to Mom. I was waiting for her to reprimand him. I was waiting for her to say, "Kevin, stop it, that's your sister." But she didn't. She just walked over to my dresser, opened the top drawer, and started scooping my clothes out, dumping them onto the floor in a heap. 1 hour and 45 minutes, she said coldly. I scrambled. I cried while I packed. I shoved my clothes, my toiletries, and the few books I owned into 2 black garbage bags. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely tie the knots. Every movement felt heavy, like I was moving through water. My mind was racing, trying to calculate my assets. I had $42 in cash. I had a half-full tank of gas in my beat-up Honda Civic, and I had a baby growing inside me. When I dragged the bags to the front door, the clock struck 8 p.m. "Keys," my mother demanded, holding out her hand. "Mom, please," I tried one last time. "Just for tonight. I'll sleep in the car in the driveway. Just don't make me leave the property." "Keys," she repeated. "And if I see your car in the driveway tomorrow morning, I'm calling the police and reporting you for trespassing." I dropped my house key into her palm. It felt like burning a bridge. Kevin opened the front door for me, letting a gust of icy wind blow into the warm hallway. "Don't come back begging when you realize nobody wants a single mom," he whispered as I passed him. I stepped out onto the porch. The door slammed shut behind me. Then the loudest sound in the world, the deadbolt sliding into place. Click. I stood there for a moment, the snow instantly wetting my socks through my sneakers. I looked at the house, the warm yellow light glowing from the living room window. I could see the silhouette of my mother walking towards the kitchen, probably to make dinner for Kevin. They were going to eat, they were going to watch TV, they were going to sleep in warm beds, and I was out here. I dragged my bags to my car, threw them in the back, and sat in the driver's seat. I didn't start the engine immediately. I just gripped the steering wheel and screamed. I screamed until my throat felt like it was bleeding. I screamed for the unfairness of it. I screamed for the baby who hadn't even been born yet but was already homeless. But then something shifted. As the tears dried on my cheeks, freezing in the cold air, a cold resolve settled in my chest. I looked at the house one last time. I will never ask you for anything ever again, I whispered to the dark windows. And one day, you're going to regret this. I started the car and drove away. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I wasn't coming back. 5 years. 5 years is a long time when you're living in survival mode. It's 1,825 days of waking up before the sun, counting every single penny, and praying that the car starts. I didn't go to Las Vegas to become a stripper, like my mother told the neighbors I did. I stayed 2 towns over. I found a room in a boarding house run by an elderly woman named Mrs. Gable. She was the angel I needed when my own flesh and blood had turned into devils. She let me pay rent late when the baby came. She watched Jana when I had to pick up extra shifts. Jana, my daughter, she was the light of my life. By the time she was 4, she was already reading. She was smart, funny, and kind. Everything her grandmother wasn't. But we were poor. There's no romanticizing it. We lived in a basement apartment now, which sounds like an upgrade, but the walls had patches of black mold I had to scrub weekly with bleach, and the heating was spotty at best. I was working at the Greasy Spoon, a diner that lived up to its name. I was the head waitress, which meant I got the best sections, but it also meant my feet were permanently swollen. It was a Tuesday afternoon, usually a slow time. The lunch rush had died down, and I was refilling ketchup bottles, mentally calculating if I had enough money to buy Jana a new pair of sneakers for kindergarten. Her toes were poking through the canvas of her old ones. Then the bell above the door chimed. The atmosphere in the diner changed instantly. Usually our customers were truckers, tired construction workers, or locals looking for cheap coffee. But the man who walked in, he sucked the air out of the room. He was tall, wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my car. He had dark hair, slightly graying at the temples, and sunglasses that he removed as he scanned the room. Outside the window I saw it, a sleek black Rolls-Royce parked next to Old Man Jenkins' rusted pickup truck. My heart stopped. I knew that face. It was a face I had tried to forget, a face I had only seen for one night 5 years ago at a freshman orientation party before my life fell apart. Alessandro. I froze behind the counter, clutching a bottle of Heinz. Please don't see me. Please don't see me. I looked down at myself. My uniform was stained with coffee. My hair was in a messy bun. I looked tired, worn out, 10 years older than my actual age of 24. He sat at a booth in my section. Of course. I took a deep breath. It's just a customer, Felicity. He won't remember you. It was one night. He was an exchange student from Switzerland. He's probably just passing through. I walked over, pulling my notepad out. What can I get for you? I asked, keeping my voice flat, avoiding eye contact. Just a black coffee, please. And he paused. I looked up. Big mistake. His eyes, piercing blue, locked onto mine. I saw the confusion register on his face first. Then recognition. Then shock. Felicity? He whispered. I wanted to run. I wanted to drop the pad and bolt out the back door. I think you have the wrong person, sir. He stood up, ignoring the coffee. No, I don't. Felicity, it's me, Alex, from the orientation. That night? I have work to do, I said sharply, turning around. Mommy! The voice came from the corner booth, where Jana was coloring in her coloring book. It was her spot after preschool, until my shift ended. Alessandro froze. He looked at me. Then he looked at the little girl in the corner. He looked at her dark curls, identical to his. He looked at her eyes, the same piercing blue as his. The silence that stretched between us was deafening. I saw his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. He looked back at me, his voice trembling, stripped of all that billionaire confidence. Is she? He pointed a shaking finger towards Jana. Is she mine? I looked at my daughter, innocent and happy, oblivious to the fact that her world was about to shatter and reform. I looked at the man who had been a ghost in my life for 5 years. Yes, I said, the word barely a whisper. Her name is Jama. And right there, In the middle of a diner that smelled like bacon grease and stale coffee, the man dropped to his knees. Tears welled up in his eyes. It wasn't the reaction I expected. I expected denial. I expected anger. I expected him to call a lawyer to deny paternity. Instead, he looked at me with an expression of pure devastation. "Why?" he choked out. "Why didn't you tell me? I've been looking for you." "Looking for me?" I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. I led him to a back booth, away from prying ears. My manager, seeing the Rolls-Royce in the suit, wisely decided to give me a break. "Don't lie to me, Alex, or Alessandro, whatever you call yourself now," I hissed, keeping my voice low so Jana wouldn't hear. "You were a rich kid on a semester abroad. We had one night. I didn't expect a ring, but I didn't expect you to vanish off the face of the earth." He looked bewildered. "Vanish? Felicity, I had to go back to Zurich for a family emergency the next morning. My father had a stroke. But I wrote to you. I wrote to the address on your student ID. I sent letters. I sent my phone number." "I never got any letters," I said, crossing my arms defensively. "I didn't stop there," he continued, his intensity growing. "When I didn't hear back, I assumed you were angry. But then, I felt it. I knew we had a connection. I hired a private investigator 2 months later just to check on you. He reported back that you were pregnant." My stomach dropped. "You knew?" "I knew you were pregnant," he said, his eyes pleading for me to believe him. "I didn't know if it was mine, but I suspected. I sent money, a lot of money. I sent a check for $5,000 every month to your home address, addressed to you. I sent it via certified mail. Someone signed for it." The world tilted on its axis. $5,000 a month? I repeated slowly. For 5 years? Yes. "And about a year ago, the letters started coming back returned to sender. But the checks were always cashed. I assumed you were raising our child comfortably. I assumed you just didn't want me in your life, so I respected your space. But I couldn't stay away any longer. I had to see her." My mind was racing, connecting dots I didn't even know existed. $5,000 a month. That was $60,000 a year. Over 5 years, that was $300,000. I thought about the nights I ate leftover toast from customers' plates so Jana could have fresh fruit. I thought about the snowstorm I walked into with 2 garbage bags. I thought about the mold on the walls. I couldn't even finish the sentence. But I knew. Deep down, in the pit of my stomach, I knew. "I have the receipts," Alessandro said, pulling out his smartphone. He tapped a few times and turned the screen toward me. It was a digital image of a cashed check from a Swiss bank account. There, on the back of the check, was a signature. It read Felicity Jones. But it wasn't my handwriting. The F was too loopy. The Y had a sharp tail. I knew that handwriting better than my own. I had seen it on permission slips, on report cards, on eviction notices. It was my mother's handwriting. My blood ran cold, then immediately boiled hot. My mother hadn't just kicked me out. She had intercepted my mail. She had stolen the checks meant for her grandchild. She had forged my signature. She had let me live in poverty, let her granddaughter sleep in a drawer for the first months of her life, while she was cashing checks worth more than her annual salary. "That's not my signature," I said, my voice shaking with a rage so profound it scared me. Alessandro looked at me, then at the check, then back at me. His expression shifted from confusion to a dark, dangerous understanding. The businessman, the CEO, appeared in his eyes. "Who signed this, Felicity?" "My mother," I whispered. "The woman who kicked me out onto the street the night I told her I was pregnant." Alessandro's hand clenched into a fist on the table. The knuckles turned white. "Take me to Jana," he said softly. "And then you and I are going to pay a visit to a lawyer. Nobody steals from my daughter." The next week was a blur, a beautiful, overwhelming blur. Alessandro didn't try to buy my love, but he made sure Jana and I were safe. He moved us out of the basement apartment immediately. We didn't move into a palace, I refused, but he rented a beautiful, secure condo in a gated community nearby. Clean air, no mold, a bedroom for Jana with a window that looked out onto a garden. He stayed in town. He wanted to get to know Jana slowly. He was patient. He sat on the floor and played dolls. He read her bedtime stories. Seeing this powerful man who ran a hospitality empire, sitting cross-legged trying to fit a tiny shoe on a Barbie doll, it broke down every wall I had built. But secrets in a small town don't stay secret for long, especially when a Rolls-Royce is involved. Someone took a picture. Maybe it was a customer at the diner, maybe it was a neighbor at the condo, but a photo of me, Jana, and Alessandro walking out of a toy store ended up on Facebook. The caption read, "Looks like the waitress from the Spoon hit the jackpot. Is that the Swiss hotel guy?" It went viral locally, and that's when the sharks smelt blood in the water. I was in the kitchen of the new condo, unpacking boxes, when my phone rang. I looked at the screen. The number wasn't saved, but I knew it. I hadn't changed my number in 5 years, hoping maybe, just maybe, one day my sister or someone would reach out. It was the landline of my childhood home. I stared at it. My thumb hovered over the red decline button, but curiosity and a new sense of security made me answer. "Hello? Felicity! Oh my God, baby girl, is that you?" The voice was high-pitched, syruply sweet. It was Brenda's church voice, the voice she used when the pastor was over for tea. "What do you want, Brenda?" I asked, cutting straight to the chase. "Brenda, is that how you talk to your mother?" She let out a fake, breathless laugh. "Oh, honey, I've been so worried about you. I heard, well, people are talking. They say you're back on your feet. They say Jana's father is, well, is he really who they say he is?" I felt bile rise in my throat. "You kicked me out in a blizzard, Mom. You haven't called in 5 years. Don't pretend you care." "Oh, Felicity, that was just a misunderstanding. Tough love, sweetheart. I was trying to teach you independence. And look at you now. You succeeded. I'm so proud of you. And I miss my granddaughter. Does she know about her Grandma Brenda? I have so many photos of you to show her." "You have exactly 1 minute to tell me why you called before I block this number forever." There was a pause. The sweetness dropped a notch, replaced by a wheedling tone. "Well, Kevin, you know your brother. He's had a run of bad luck. His car broke down and he can't get to job interviews. And my back is acting up, so I can't work as much. We're family, Felicity. Families help each other. We saw the pictures. That man, he's a billionaire, Felicity. Surely you can spare a little to help the woman who gave you life." I gripped the phone so hard the plastic creaked. Gave me life. She nearly killed me. And she had been stealing $5,000 a month for 5 years. She should be rich. Wait, if she stole $300,000, where did the money go? "I'm not giving you a dime," I said calmly. "Do not call me again." I hung up, but I knew it wasn't over. Brenda didn't take no for an answer. And Kevin? Kevin felt the world owed him a living. They were coming. It was a Saturday. Alessandra was over for a barbecue. We were grilling burgers on the patio. Jana was chasing butterflies in the grass. For the first time in my adult life, I felt peace. Then the gate buzzer rang. I checked the security camera feed on the iPad in the kitchen. My stomach turned. There, parked in front of the sleek iron gates of the community, was my mother's rusted minivan. Brenda was leaning out the window yelling at the security guard. Kevin was standing outside the car, smoking a cigarette, looking up at the security cameras and flipping the bird. "What is it?" Alessandro asked, walking up behind me. He saw the screen and his jaw tightened. "Is that them?" "Yes," I said. "How did they find us?" "Public records, maybe, or they followed us," Alessandro said. He put a hand on my shoulder. "You don't have to let them in." I watched them on the screen. Brenda was now crying, fake tears, to the guard. I could see her mouthing, "My daughter, grandbaby, emergency." If I didn't let them in, they would cause a scene. They would camp out. They would call the police and claim I was keeping them from their grandchild. I knew Brenda's playbook. She thrived on drama. "Let them in," I said, my voice cold. "Let's get this over with." Alessandro nodded. "I'll stay right here by your side." When the minivan rolled up the driveway, it looked like a stain on a pristine painting. Oil leaked onto the fresh pavers. Brenda hopped out before the car even fully stopped. She was wearing a floral dress that was too tight and too bright. She rushed toward me with arms wide open. "Felicity! Oh, look at this place. It's a mansion." She tried to hug me, but I stepped back. She hugged the air, recovered quickly, and spun around to look at Alessandro. Her eyes practically turned into dollar signs. "And you must be the father," she purred, extending a hand. "I'm Brenda, the grandmother. We've been dying to meet you." Alessandro didn't take her hand. He stood with his arms crossed, looking at her with the same expression one looks at a cockroach. "Alessandro," he said simply. Kevin sauntered up, tossing his cigarette butt onto my lawn. He looked at the house, then at Alessandro's Rolls-Royce parked in the garage. "Nice ride," he grunted, "but that cost more than my life." "Where is she?" Brenda asked, looking around wildly. "Where is my grandbaby?" "She's inside," I lied. "Jana was in the backyard playing, and I intended to keep her there." "What do you want, Mom?" "We just came to visit. Can't a family visit?" Brenda feigned hurt. "And, well, we need to talk business." "Business?" I raised an eyebrow. "Kevin here," she gestured to my brother, who was currently eyeing the patio furniture like he wanted to steal it, "has a great business opportunity. A startup. Crypto something or other. He just needs seed money. And since you've come into fortune—" "We aren't a bank, Brenda," I said. "We?" She narrowed her eyes. "You aren't married yet, Missy. That child is your leverage. You deserve a cut of his money. And by extension, so do we. I raised you. I fed you for 18 years. "You kicked me out," I reminded her. "Water under the bridge," she waved her hand dismissively. "Look, let's stop the drama. Kevin needs $50,000. Small change for him," she nodded at Alessandro. "Write the check and we'll be out of your hair. We can even work out a visitation schedule." "I'm sure you need a babysitter." The audacity was breathtaking. "No," I said. Brenda's smile vanished. The mask dropped. The real Brenda appeared. "Excuse me?" "No money, no visits, no babysitting. Get off my property." Brenda stepped closer, invading my personal space. "Listen to me, you little ungrateful brat. You think you're better than us because you spread your legs for a rich guy? You owe me. I kept your secrets. I told everyone you were working in Vegas so you wouldn't be ashamed. I protected your reputation." "Protected my reputation?" I laughed incredulously. "You called me a slut to the entire congregation." "I did what I had to do," she shrieked. Then she looked past me, through the sliding glass door. She saw Jana. "There she is." Brenda pushed past me. "Jana!" "Grandma is here." "Stop!" I yelled, grabbing her arm. She spun around and shoved me hard. I stumbled back, tripping over a planter. Alessandro moved faster than lightning. He stepped between Brenda and me, his chest puffing out, towering over her. "Touch her again," Alessandro said, his voice low and terrifyingly calm, "and you will spend the rest of your life in a Swiss prison cell." The shove wasn't hard enough to knock me over, but it was violent enough to shatter the last fragile illusion I held about family. I stumbled back, my heel catching on the edge of a patio paver. Alessandro moved instantly, a blur of charcoal gray suit and protective rage, stepping between me and my mother. He didn't touch her. He was too smart for that. But he loomed over her like a thunderhead, his chest heaving. "Get out," he growled, his voice vibrating with a menace that would have sent a lesser woman running. "Get off this property before I throw you off." But Brenda didn't run. She didn't even flinch. She straightened her cheap floral dress, patted her hair, and looked at me with a sneer that I remembered from my childhood. The look she gave me when I got a B on a report card, or when I cried because Kevin broke my toys. It was a look of utter disdain. "You think you can get rid of me that easily?" Brenda hissed, her voice rising an octave, designed to attention from the neighbors. "I have rights, Felicity.
In this state, there are grandparents' rights.
I have a right to see my flesh and blood. If you try to keep me from Jana, I will drag you into court so fast your head will spin. I will tell the judge you're unfit. I'll tell them about your mental instability. Mental instability. The audacity hit me like a physical blow. For a second, the old Felicity wanted to scream, to cry, to list all the ways she was wrong. The old Felicity wanted to beg her to just be a mother for once. But then I looked at Jana. My daughter was standing by the sliding glass door, her little nose pressed against the glass, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. She wasn't looking at Alessandro. She was looking at me. She was waiting to see if her mother was going to protect her, or if her mother was going to crumble. And just like that, snap.
It wasn't a loud noise. It was a silent switch flipping in the deepest, darkest part of my brain. The heat in my chest vanished, replaced by a cold, crystalline clarity. The tears that were threatening to spill evaporated. The shaking in my hands stopped. I looked at Brenda, and for the first time in 24 years, I didn't see my mother. I didn't see the woman whose approval I craved. I saw a parasite. I saw a threat. I saw a stranger who had broken into my life to steal from my child. I gently placed a hand on Alessandro's arm, signaling him to stand down. He looked at me, surprised by the sudden calm in my touch. I stepped forward, closing the distance between Brenda and me, until I could smell her perfume, too sweet, masking the scent of stale cigarettes.
Grandparents' rights apply to grandparents who have an existing relationship with the child, I said, my voice terrifyingly even. It didn't sound like my voice. It sounded like a judge reading a verdict. You have never met her. You have never sent a birthday card. You kicked her mother out into a blizzard. I was teaching you a lesson, Brenda screeched, realizing she was losing control of the narrative. And now you're rich. You owe me. I raised you. I put clothes on your back. You want money? I interrupted her. The question hung in the air. Brenda stopped mid-scream. Her eyes darted to Kevin, who was leaning against their rusted minivan, looking bored but listening intently. The mention of money was the only thing that could silence them.
Well, Brenda huffed, smoothing her dress again, a triumphant smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth. It's only fair. Compensation for the emotional distress of being estranged. And for Kevin, he needs a fresh start. A fresh start, I repeated, deadpan. And if I pay you, you leave us alone. We can work out an arrangement, Brenda said, her eyes gleaming with greed. A monthly stipend, maybe $5,000, and a lump sum for the lost years, say $50,000. She was negotiating. She was selling her absence. She was literally putting a price tag on her toxicity. I need time to liquidate some assets, I lied. The lie came easily, smoothly. Alessandro and I need to discuss the structure of the payment.
Alessandro looked at me sharply, about to object, but I squeezed his arm hard. Trust me, my eyes said. Friday, I said. Friday at 2 p.m. Meet us at this address. I pulled a pen from my pocket and wrote down the address of a building downtown on a napkin from the patio table. It wasn't our house. It was the address of the most vicious litigation firm in the city. Don't be late, I added. Brenda snatched the napkin. See, I knew you were a smart girl. We'll be there. And Felicity? She leaned in, lowering her voice to a conspirator's whisper. Don't try to shortchange me. I know how much he's worth. She marched back to the minivan. Kevin gave me a mock salute before sliding into the passenger seat. As they backed out of the driveway, leaking more oil onto the pristine pavers, I didn't feel relief. I felt the cold, hard resolve of a general preparing for war. Felicity, Alessandra said, turning me to face him, please tell me you aren't actually going to pay that woman. She's a monster. I looked up at him. Pay her? I let out a dry, humorless laugh. No, Alessandro, I'm not going to pay her. I'm going to ruin her. I turned back to the house, walking toward the sliding door where Jana was waiting. Call your lawyer, the one you said was a shark. I want to hire him, and I want a forensic accountant
tonight. The snap wasn't just about anger. It was about realizing that tears don't save you. Strategy does. Evidence does. And I was done crying.
The office of Sterling and Associates smelled like old money and fear. It was located on the 40th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city I had once scrubbed toilets in. Arthur Sterling was a man who looked like he had been carved out of granite. He didn't offer sympathy. He offered results. He sat across from us at a mahogany table that was likely worth more than my entire childhood home. Next to him was Vance, the private investigator, and a forensic accountant named Sarah. "Miss Jones," Sterling began, his voice deep and gravelly. "Mr. Vance has been busy, and what we found? Well, in my 30 years of practice, I have rarely seen such brazen stupidity coupled with such malice." Sarah slid a thick binder across the table. It was labeled Assets and Expenditures, B. "Open it," she said softly. My hands trembled slightly as I flipped the cover. I wasn't afraid of them anymore, but I was afraid of the truth. I was afraid of how much it would hurt. The first page was a copy of a check, dated 4 years and 11 months ago. Amount, $5,000. The memo line read, "Child support, Jana." And on the back, a signature, Felicity Jones. I stared at it. It was a good forgery, I'll give her that, but it wasn't mine. The loops on the L were too wide. It was the handwriting of a woman who had signed my permission slips, my report cards, and now my financial death warrant. "She opened an account at the credit union under Felicity Jones Trust," Vance explained. "She used your social security number. She forged a power of attorney claiming you were incapacitated." "Incapacitated?" I choked out. "She told the bank manager you were in rehab," Vance said, his eyes sympathetic, "and that she was managing your funds for the baby." Rehab? While I was working double shifts on my feet until they bled. While I was eating ramen noodles so Jana could have fresh vegetables. She was painting me as a drug addict to steal my money. "Turn to page 10, Sarah instructed. "This is the cross-reference of the withdrawals against her spending." This was the part that broke me, and then rebuilt me with steel. Date, December 24th, 2019. Withdrawal, $2,000. Expenditure, Tiffany & Co., gold bracelet. I remembered that Christmas. I had $70 to my name. I bought Jana a secondhand coat and a plastic doll from the dollar store. We ate mac and cheese. My mother was wearing a $2,000 bracelet bought with my daughter's money. Date, February 14th, 2020. Withdrawal, $4,500. Expenditure, Carnival cruise sign, Bahamas getaway for 2. That was the month Jana got pneumonia. I couldn't afford the antibiotics and the inhaler. I had to beg Mrs. Gable for a loan. I sat up all night holding my wheezing child, terrified she would stop breathing. And Brenda? Brenda was sipping Mai Tais in Nassau with Kevin. Page after page. The receipts didn't just show theft. They showed a timeline of cruelty. Every time I hit a rock bottom, she was living the high life. The new car in the driveway? My money. Kevin's legal fees for his DUI? My money. The renovation of her kitchen? My money. The total, Sarah said, is $312,000 plus interest. I closed the binder. The room was silent. Alessandro's hand was gripping mine so tight his knuckles were white. He looked like he wanted to kill someone. "This isn't just a lawsuit," Sterling said, leaning forward, his eyes gleaming. "This is federal mail fraud. This is bank fraud. This is identity theft. This is grand larceny. If we take this to the district attorney, she's looking at 15 to 20 years in prison, minimum." "Do it," Alessandro said instantly. "Wait," I said. My voice was calm, unnaturally calm. "Not yet." Sterling raised an eyebrow. "Why wait? We have the smoking gun." "Because she's coming tomorrow to get her settlement," I said. "If we arrest her now, she'll play the victim. She'll cry to the press. She'll say it's a misunderstanding." I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city. "I want her to sign one more thing.
I said, turning back to the room. I want her to sign a settlement agreement, one that acknowledges she received the money. I want her to admit it, on paper, thinking she's getting away with it. I want her to think she's won. And then, I want to crush her. Sterling smiled. It was a terrifying smile. You're vicious, Miss Jones. I like it. We'll draft a release of claims for tomorrow. It will be a trap. The moment she signs it, she's admitting to the knowledge of the funds. And Kevin, Vance asked. He's an accessory, but he might claim ignorance.
Leave Kevin to me, I said, checking my phone. I have a feeling the rat is about to scurry off the sinking ship. I left that office not as a victim, but as the architect of their destruction. I held the binder against my chest like a shield. These weren't just papers. They were my vindication. They were the receipts. And tomorrow, payment was due. Thursday night. The air in the house was thick with tension. Jana was asleep, blissfully unaware that her mother was plotting to send her grandmother to prison. I sat at the kitchen island, a glass of water in front of me, staring at my phone. It was 11:30 p.m. I knew Kevin. He was weak, he was greedy, and most of all, he was a coward. He had seen Alessandro's car. He had seen the security. He knew Brenda was playing a dangerous game, and Kevin never played a game he couldn't cheat at. At 11:42 p.m., the phone rang. No caller ID. I didn't answer immediately. I let it ring twice, 3 times. Make him sweat. Hello? Felicity? His voice was a hushed whisper, trembling. It's Kev. Kevin, I said, keeping my voice bored. It's late. We're seeing you tomorrow. What do you want? Look, you gotta listen to me, he said, the words tumbling out fast. Mom, she's crazy, okay? I tried to stop her. You know that, right? I told her, Mom, don't go over there. Leave Felicity alone, but she wouldn't listen. I rolled my eyes. He was rewriting history already. Is that so? Because I seem to remember you asking for a charger. I was just playing along, he stammered. Look, I'm in a bad spot, Fliss. I owe some guys, bad guys, bookies. If I don't come up with 10 grand by the weekend, they're gonna break my legs, seriously. And why is that my problem? Because I can help you, he hissed. Mom is planning to ask for more than 50 tomorrow. She wants monthly alimony. She's claiming she has dirt on you from high school. Lies, obviously. But she's gonna threaten to leak it to the press if you don't pay up forever. I silently started the recording app on my iPad, placing it next to the phone. Go on, I said. She's got cash hidden, Felicity. She didn't spend it all. She's paranoid. She keeps stacks of it under the floorboards in the pantry. Thousands. That's your money, from the checks. The checks she forged? I asked, leading him. Yeah, the Swiss checks. Kevin was so desperate he didn't realize he was walking into a trap. I saw her doing it, Felicity. I saw her practicing your signature at the kitchen table with a light box. She laughed about it. She said you were too stupid to notice. She said the little brat is living in squalor while I'm living like a queen. My knuckles turned white gripping the phone. Hearing it confirmed, the malice, the mockery was sickening. So you knew? I asked quietly. For 5 years, you knew she was stealing from my daughter. And you said nothing? She threatened me, Kevin lied. She said she'd cut me off. Look, if I testify, if I tell the lawyer everything I just told you, will you give me the 10 grand? Just 10. That's it. Then I'm gone. I'll move to Florida. You'll never see me again. I looked at the recording timer ticking upward. 2:15. 2:16. You're willing to testify that Brenda forged the signatures and you witnessed it? Yes, I'll sign whatever. Just bring a check for me tomorrow, separate from Mom's. Don't tell her. Okay, Kevin, I said, my voice cold as ice. I'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you come. You're a lifesaver, sis. Seriously, I love you. I hung up. I love you. The words felt like slime coming from him. I saved the recording.
and immediately emailed it to Sterling and Vance. Subject line: the nail in the coffin. Kevin thought he was making a plea deal. He thought he was the smart one, the survivor.
He didn't realize that by admitting he knew and profited from the fraud, the bail money, the cruises, he had just confessed to being an accomplice to a federal crime. He wasn't going to Florida. He was going to federal prison. I walked to the window and looked out at the dark driveway. I imagined them in that house, my house, sleeping on mattresses bought with my money, dreaming of the payday they thought was coming tomorrow. They had no idea. They thought they were walking into a bank to make a withdrawal. They didn't know they were walking into a slaughterhouse. "Sleep tight, Mom," I whispered to the darkness. "Enjoy your last night of freedom." Friday morning arrived with a sky the color of bruised iron.
It was raining, a cold, miserable drizzle that reminded me of the night I left. But this time, I was watching it from the heated leather seat of Alessandro's Rolls-Royce. I wasn't wearing my waitress uniform today. I was wearing a tailored navy blue suit, heels that clicked with authority, and a diamond tennis bracelet Alessandro had given me, not as a bribe, but as armor. I needed to look like the woman I had become, not the scared girl Brenda remembered. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Kevin. "We're parking now. Mom is hyped. Don't forget my envelope. Separate. Cash." I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen, feeling a cold, hard knot of anticipation in my stomach. It wasn't fear. It was the feeling a hunter gets right before springing the trap.
"You ready?" Alessandro asked, squeezing my hand. His knuckles were wrapped in the fine leather of the steering wheel, his jaw set in a protective line. "I've been ready for 5 years," I said. We pulled up to the skyscraper that housed Sterling and Associates. It was a fortress of glass and steel, a place where fortunes were made and lives were dismantled. As we walked through the lobby, the security guards nodded at Alessandro. We took the private elevator to the 40th floor. When the doors opened, the atmosphere was clinical, precise, and expensive. And sitting in the plush waiting area, looking completely out of place, were Brenda and Kevin.
Brenda was wearing her court outfit, a pastel pink suit that looked like it belonged in an Easter parade, paired with excessive costume jewelry. She was loudly berating the receptionist about the quality of the coffee. Kevin was slumped in a chair, scrolling on his phone, wearing a suit that was 2 sizes too big and clearly rented. When they saw us, Brenda stood up, smoothing her skirt. Her eyes went immediately to the diamond on my wrist. A hungry glint flickered there before she masked it with a fake saccharine smile. "Felicity!" she exclaimed, opening her arms as if we were at a family reunion. "And Alessandro, you two look expensive." "Mother," I said, stopping just out of reach. "Kevin."
Kevin gave me a subtle wink, tapping his chest pocket where he assumed his check would go. The ignorance was staggering. He really thought he was the smartest person in the room. "Shall we?" Arthur Sterling appeared from the hallway. He didn't smile. He looked at Brenda and Kevin like a health inspector looking at a rat infestation. "Conference room A." We filed in. The room was imposing. A long mahogany table dominated the space, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Alessandro and I sat on one side, flanked by Sterling and Vance. Brenda and Kevin sat opposite us. Brenda placed her fake leather purse on the table with a thud. She looked around, clearly intimidated but trying desperately to hide it. "Well," she said, clasping her hands, "this is all very formal for a family matter, but I suppose when you have money, you have to pay lawyers to do the talking." "It's to ensure everything is legal," Sterling said smoothly. He slid a single document across the polished wood. "This is the agreement we discussed." Brenda picked it up, her eyes scanning the page greedily. $50,000, she read aloud, a smirk playing on her lips, "and an acknowledgement of my role as grandmother." "Very good." "There is one condition," Sterling interjected. Clause 4. You must sign an affidavit stating that prior to this date you have received no financial support from Mr. Alessandro's estate, and that this payment constitutes a full and final settlement of all claims. Brenda laughed. "Of course I haven't received anything." That's the whole point. He's been a deadbeat dad for 5 years. She looked at Alessandro with accusation. You left my daughter destitute. I had to scrape by to help her. The lies rolled off her tongue so easily. I watched her, marveling at her performance. She truly believed her own narrative. She had told the lie so many times that it had become her truth. So you are confirming, I said, speaking for the first time, my voice steady, that you never received any checks, letters, or communication from Alessandro intended for me or Jana. Brenda looked me dead in the eye. Never. Not a dime. That's why I'm here, Felicity. Justice. Sign it, I said. Brenda uncapped a pen she had brought, a glittery pink thing. She signed the document with a flourish, pressing down hard.
She pushed it toward Kevin. Sign as witness, Kev. Kevin signed it too, his leg bouncing nervously under the table. He slid the paper back to Sterling. There, Brenda said, leaning back, crossing her arms. Now, where is the check, and when do I get to see Jana? The room went silent. The air conditioning hummed. I looked at Sterling. He gave a microscopic nod. Actually, I said, standing up slowly, there isn't going to be a check. Brenda's smile halted. Excuse me? We have a deal. I just signed your paper. You signed an affidavit, I corrected her. You just swore under penalty of perjury that you never received money from Alessandro. Because I didn't, she shrieked. Vance, I said. The binder, please. Vance lifted a heavy black binder from the floor and dropped it onto the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I opened the binder. I didn't rush. I wanted her to see every movement. This, I said, pointing to the first page, is a copy of a check sent via certified mail on September 1st, 5 years ago. Amount, $5,000. Brenda's face went pale, but she held her ground. I never saw that. Turn the page, I said. This is the signature on the return receipt. It's yours, Brenda. That looks like my handwriting, but anyone could forge that, she stammered, sweat beginning to bead on her upper lip. And this, I flipped to the bank records, is the opening document for an account at Great Lakes Credit Union. Account holder, Brenda Jones, trustee for Felicity Jones. Opened with your driver's license and your social security number. I looked up. Her confidence was cracking, replaced by the cornered look of a feral animal. Kevin had stopped bouncing his leg. He was staring at the table, trying to make himself invisible. And here, I continued, my voice rising with the energy of 5 years of suppressed rage, are the withdrawals. Carnival Cruise, Tiffany & Co., the bail bondsman for Kevin's DUI, the down payment on your minivan. You stole my mail, Brenda whispered, trying to flip the script. That's illegal. You stole $300,000 from your granddaughter, Alessandro shouted, slamming his hand on the table. Brenda flinched. That money was for Jana. For her food, for her clothes. While she was sleeping in a drawer, you were drinking margaritas on a cruise ship. I was keeping it safe, Brenda yelled, standing up. I was going to give it to her when she turned 18. I was investing it. By spending it at the Lucky Star Casino? Sterling asked dryly, holding up a printout of her gambling losses. We have the players' card records, Mrs. Jones. You lost $40,000 on slot machines in 2021 alone. Brenda looked around the room, frantic. Her eyes landed on Kevin. Kevin, tell them. Tell them I was saving it. You know I was. This was the moment. The knife twist. I pulled out my iPad. Actually, Kevin had a different story last night. I pressed play. Kevin's voice filled the room, loud and clear. She's got cash hidden, Felicity. I saw her practicing your signature at the kitchen table. She laughed about it. She said you were too stupid to notice. Brenda froze. She turned to her son slowly. The betrayal on her face was almost Shakespearean. You rat, she hissed. You little rat. I paid for your lawyers. I bought you that car. I didn't mean it, Mom, Kevin stammered, standing up and backing away. They trapped me. You sold me out for what?
Brenda lunged at him, swinging her purse. "For money, you useless parasite." "Sit down," Vance barked, stepping forward. Brenda collapsed back into her chair, breathing heavily. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Real tears this time. Tears of fear. "Felicity, baby, please. I'm your mother."
I made a mistake. I was weak, but I did it for us, to keep the family afloat. Don't do this. We can work it out. I'll pay it back. I'll get a job. Just don't let them take me. I looked at her. I looked for a shred of empathy in my heart. I looked for the little girl who just wanted her mommy to love her. But that little girl was gone. She had frozen to death on the porch 5 years ago. "You aren't my mother," I said softly. "You're a thief, and you're done." I nodded to Sterling. He pressed a button on the intercom. "Send them in." The double doors opened. 2 uniformed police officers and a detective in a suit walked in. They had been waiting in the adjoining room the entire time. "Brenda Jones?" the detective asked.
"I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of federal mail fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny." Brenda screamed. It was a raw, primal sound as the officer pulled her hands behind her back. The click of the handcuffs was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. Better than the zipper of the trash bags. Better than the silence of the snow. "Kevin Jones?" The detective turned to my brother. "Wait!" Kevin yelled, holding up his hands. "I made a deal. I'm the witness. Felicity promised." "I promised I'd see you today," I said coldly. "I didn't promise immunity. You just confessed on tape to being an accessory after the fact and benefiting from the proceeds of a crime. You knew about the fraud, and you took the money." "But I told on her." Kevin shrieked as the second officer grabbed him. "You only told on her to save yourself," I said. "That's not redemption, Kevin. That's cowardice." As they dragged them out, Brenda was screaming curses at me. "You're dead to me, you ungrateful witch. I hope you rot." Kevin was crying, begging for his 10 grand. I stood at the window and watched as they were led into the police cruisers far below. The flashing lights reflected in the wet pavement. I felt Alessandro's arm go around my waist. "It's over," he whispered. "No," I said, leaning my head against his shoulder. "It's just beginning." The fallout was swift, brutal, and public.
Because Brenda had made such a scene on social media about being a victim of grandparents' rights abuse, the news of her arrest went viral locally. The mugshots were everywhere. Brenda with her mascara running and hair disheveled, Kevin looking like a deer in headlights. The comment section on her original posts turned overnight. People who had been calling me a heartless daughter were now posting clown emojis on her profile. The church ladies she cared so much about, they were the first to gossip. I heard through Mrs. Gable that the pastor had formally asked Brenda to step down from the choir, via a letter sent to the county jail. We didn't let up. Sterling was ruthless. We filed a civil suit to seize Brenda's assets.
The house, my childhood home, was put on the market to pay back the restitution. The minivan was repossessed. Kevin's Charger, which was actually a leased V6, was towed. I went back to the house one last time with the foreclosure agents. Walking through those empty rooms was surreal. The smell of stale cigarettes and deception was gone, replaced by the smell of cleaning chemicals. I went into the pantry. Sure enough, the floorboards were loose, but there was no money there. Kevin had been right about the location, but Brenda had spent it all. There was nothing left but dust and spiderwebs. I stood in my old bedroom. It looked exactly the same as the night I left. The pink comforter was still there, faded by the sun. "You okay?" Alessandro asked from the doorway. "I'm fine," I said. And I meant it. I just realized I don't miss this place. It was never a home. It was just a house where I survived. The legal proceedings dragged on for 6 months. Brenda tried to plead not guilty, claiming insanity, claiming I had framed her, but the evidence was insurmountable. The forensic accounting, the forged checks, the Kevin tape, it was airtight. In the end, she took a plea deal to avoid a 20-year sentence. She was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Kevin got 3 years as an accomplice. I didn't go to the sentencing. I didn't need to see it. I had my closure in that conference room. Sterling went in my place and read a victim impact statement I had written. It was short. For 5 years, I thought I wasn't good enough. I thought my mother didn't love me because I had failed her. I know now that I didn't fail. I survived a predator. My daughter will never know that kind of conditional love. She will never know hunger, and she will never know you. Sterling told me later that Brenda cried when she heard it, not because she was sorry, but because she realized she had lost her only retirement plan. After the house was sold, we recovered about $150,000 of the stolen money. Alessandro wanted to burn it. He said it was cursed. No, I said, we're going to use it, but not for us. We took that money, combined it with a significant donation from Alessandro, and started the Second Chance Foundation. 1 year later, I stood on a podium, looking out at a crowd of about 50 people.
Behind me was a newly renovated building, the old apartment complex where Mrs. Gable lived. We had bought the whole building. The sign above the door read, "The Gable House, Safe Haven for Young Mothers." When I was 18, I spoke into the microphone, my voice steady and strong. I was given 2 hours to pack my life into trash bags. I thought my life was over. I thought being a mother meant giving up on my dreams. I looked down at the front row. Mrs. Gable was there, sitting in a wheelchair, wiping tears from her eyes. Next to her was Alessandro, holding Jana's hand. Jana was 6 now, missing a front tooth, and wearing a dress she had picked out herself. It was neon green and purple, and it was perfect. But I learned that family isn't about blood, I continued.
Family is about who shows up when it's snowing. Family is about who shares their last packet of ramen with you. Family is who believes in you when you have nothing. I paused, looking at Alessandro. He winked at me. Today, we open this house so that no girl in this city will ever have to sleep in a car because she chose life. We provide housing, childcare, and education. We give them the chance that I almost didn't get. The crowd cheered. As I cut the ribbon, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I was still carrying. Later that evening, after the party was over, Alessandro and I sat on the balcony of our home. Jana was asleep inside. The city lights twinkled below us. "You did good today," Alessandro said, handing me a glass of wine.
We did good, I corrected him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath hitched. I didn't want to do this in front of the cameras, he said softly. I didn't want it to be part of the show. I just want it to be us. He opened the box. It wasn't a diamond the size of a skating rink. It was a vintage sapphire ring, elegant and understated. Felicity, he said. I missed the first 5 years. I will spend the rest of my life making up for it. Will you marry me? I looked at the ring, then at him. I thought about the scared girl on the porch. I thought about the waitress refilling ketchup bottles. I thought about the woman who walked into a law firm and took down a criminal empire. Yes, I whispered. Yes. We didn't invite my mother to the wedding.
She sent a letter from prison a few weeks later. I didn't open it. I marked it return to sender and put it back in the mailbox. I don't hate her anymore. Hate takes too much energy. I just nothing her. She is a ghost of a past life that no longer exists. I have my family now. I have my purpose. And most importantly, I have the receipts. My life isn't perfect. Jana still throws tantrums, and I still have nightmares about the cold sometimes. But when I wake up, I'm warm, I'm safe, and I know exactly who I am. I am Felicity. I am a mother, and I am a survivor. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's been a long journey, and I'm so grateful you walked it with me. If you've ever had to cut toxic family out of your life to save yourself, comment the letter A below. I want to see how many survivors are out there. You are not alone. Please subscribe for more stories. And remember, keep your receipts because the truth always wins.